Hi, this is Ofori, the digital reader, and I recently got a question from somebody who watched my videos asking if there were any free reading tracker options. As anybody who's watched my channel knows, I'm a big fan of reading trackers. I do overviews of them. I will often recommend them. So I took a quick look to see if there were any free reading trackers that I thought I might recommend, and I was able to find two. One is just for iOS and it's called BookEnd, and the other is for Android, iOS, and it's on the web. It has a website and it's called BookPine, and it touts itself kind of as a Goodreads like type of experience where the online experience is like Goodreads, and then you have the web, then you have the apps where you can track your reading. BookEnd I really liked. I just thought it was very similar to the paid book tracking apps that I typically use. And for BookPine, I feel like it had a little bit of a steeper learning curve and you had to be a little bit more patient with it. But I feel like since it's a free option and if you put in the time with it, then I think it'll be another fine option if you're not willing to pay for a reading tracking app and you just kind of have a little bit of patience and kind of want to tinker around with BookPine a bit. So I'll get started with BookEnd on iOS and just kind of quickly walk you through that, and then you can kind of dive in and play around with it on your own. Same thing with BookPine. Once I give you a quick overview, you can dive in, play around with it on your own. Since they're both free, there's nothing really to lose. So the first app we're going to look at is BookEnd, and this is my favorite of the two for a couple reasons. The first is I just feel like the interface is a little bit more intuitive and it's a little bit easier to use. I feel that the second app, BookPine, is a little bit clunkier and it has a little bit of a longer learning curve, and you really just kind of have to be a little bit patient before you kind of get used to how their reading tracking works. So let's open up BookPine. When you first open up BookPine, you're going to see the book that you're currently reading, any books that you've recently added. You're going to see your reading goals and some statistics. And then when you go to the library, you're going to see all of your current shelves. So what you're currently reading, what you want to read, library overview. And then when you go into all of your books, you'll see them here. And then if you scroll to your books, you can go back. And then they also have a section library statistics. And you can go here and look at all of your stats. Then you have milestones. This is going to have all your different milestones for all the books that you've read and some more tracking. It's also going to have your history, and the cool thing is your history has all the information about all the books that you've ever read. Now for BookEnd, the way that you will track your reading is you'll go into the book you're currently reading, and you can, just to jump right back into it, you can tap resume reading and it'll do an immediately timed session, which means this is live, it's counting off, and then when you stop the clock, it'll ask you for information to record that session. If it's too short, it might tell you your current progress is invalid, but in this situation, we're not going to record this current progress. I just want to show you how to do it if you were doing it live. Whenever you do BookEnd, you will get to choose between percentage and page. I almost always use page. So I'm just going to go ahead and get out of this, discard the session. And the way I always do it is I use this little hourglass here. And when I put in my session, you can use percent, but like I said, I most of the time, because Pocketbook uses pages, I always go at the page. And then you would put in your current page that you're at. And then when you get to reading duration, instead of auto, you would hit manual and you would put the time that you read. So let's just say, for example, I read to page 90 and it took me 20 minutes to do it. Then I hit check, and it's going to add that reading session. And when you go to look at all of your reading sessions, here it is, reading sessions. You can see I have 2 reading sessions. One I just did for 17 pages and one I just did for 73 pages. So that's how you would add your reading information. And that's pretty much it. It does have the stats, of course. You can export your books information to a CSV file, which is always nice. Free, no commercials. And that's pretty much Bookend. BookPine is going to start out with the home screen. Now, as I said, I'm not a fan of this interface, but it all works fine as long as you put in a little time in it. So with BookPine, one thing you want to be key on is up top, they're going to have like these tabs, and these tabs will jump you around to different sections. The tabs are very faint and hard to read, so you just want to be clear. So you have a reading tab. That's going to give you your reading info on your home screen. Your Discover tab is going to be kind of community and recommended books and books people like the most. Then you're going to have your bookshelf. Your bookshelf is going to be all the books that are currently in your account, the ones you're reading, currently reading, and finished. Then you're going to have your library. And once again, your library is going to have these upper tabs. So you're going to have your overview. You're going to have your logbook. Your logbook is going to show you your reading history. You can see here it says I started the book, then it shows all my reading sessions, and I'll show you how to enter a reading session because it's a little bit counterintuitive, but I'll show it to you. Then you have your stats up top, and that'll have all your stats. Then your reading log, and your reading log is going to be all the books that you're currently reading. Currently, I was reading Assassin's Quest, and then you're going to have books. That's going to show all your books. If you have any series, it'll show your series. And so these tabs up top will jump you to all the different information. Now, whenever you want to do your reading tracking, which is the main focus of this, is you're going to go to logbook. And when you go to, I'm sorry, not logbook, you're going to go to reading log. And then you're going to tap on the book that you're currently reading. And you're going to see a little clock. That clock will instantly start a reading session. I'm going to discard that. Or you can go to this little drop down ellipsis, and it's not going to tell you to add a reading session. It's going to give you the option to edit. And when you edit a reading section, at the bottom portion, it says reading session details. You're going to add the most updated information, and then it'll turn it into a reading session. So you can see it has a start date. It puts in the date automatically. You have to change that. So what I'll do actually a book from scratch. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a book that I'm currently reading, which is The Sirens of Titan. So to add a book, you just hit this little magnifying glass and you'll see Sirens of Venus by Kurt Vonnegut. And I'm going to go ahead and add it to my shelf. And I'm going to choose currently reading. And then I'm going to save changes. And now when I go home and I go to my bookshelf, I have these 2 books. And to add a reading session, I'm going to go to Journal and then Add Reading Log. I'm not going to change any of the information here. Actually, I'm going to change the page. I believe this one has, at least in my pocketbook, it has 189 pages. So I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a reading session. But once again, they don't call it adding a reading session. They call it edit. And it starts immediately. So you can see that if I add a reading session, I can't go back in the past because it won't let me because of the start date, but I can change the start date. So I'm going to change the start date to the 18th. Then it's going to ask me just for the date and time. So now it's May 18th. What you do is I'm going to change it. Let's just say I'm going to do, so we're going to change it. We're going to change the time from to May 19th, and we're going to do it for 2 hours. We're going to do it from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. So May 19th, and then we're going to do 5 p.m. And you can see inside here, they give you the 24-hour clock, and that's how you're going to designate between AM and PM. So 1700 would be 5 p.m. and I'll keep the time. This is like I said, you got to get used to this interface. So now I'm going to go ahead and make it for 2 hours, and 2 hours is going to be 7 o'clock is going to be 1900. And like I said, outside is AM, inside is PM. All right, 2 hours. Now my progress. Let's say I read 50 pages and then I hit save. It's going to show 50 pages, and if I want to add another log, what I would do is click here, and once again, instead of calling it adding a reading session, they call it edit. And then what you would do, like I said, a little counterintuitive, you would just change this information to what's most current. So now let's say I'm going to change this. I'm going to change it to 8. I'm going to change it to 7 o'clock p.m. And then I'll change this to 7:15. And 70 pages and save. Cool. So now I can view my reading sessions. It should show 2, 10 to 50, 150 to 70. So, once you get used to entering it that way, I guess it's not going to be that hard. It's just very counterintuitive for me. So that's the app, and both the iOS app and the Android app are kind of similar. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump to the web page so you can kind of see what it looks like on this website. It looks pretty similar, but like I said, just want to show that to you real quick. So I'm going to leave here, and we're going to go ahead to the web page. So next we're going to go to the BookPine website. So let's go ahead and pop there. And I'm already logged into the BookPine website. I'm just going to go ahead and log out just so you can kind of see what it looks like when you don't have an account. So this is what it looks like. Let me just pop that up. And this is what it looks like. And they consider themselves kind of a Goodreads, but they have with the apps that actually track writing, whereas Goodreads apps don't really track your reading progress. And then you can sign up or you can sign in. I'm going to go ahead and sign in. And once I'm signed in, this is what it looks like. It's got my currently reading, Sirens of Titan. If I go to my bookshelf, it's got both of my books that I'm reading. If I click on this one, then it'll show that. And then I click Journal. Journal is when it shows my reading tracking and any notes I've left. And then reviews and what the different editions I'm using, or go to the overview. They have their home, which has this basic info. Then you have your browse, books, series, genres list, your library, and all the information here. I mean, I actually like the website, but once again, I just don't like the way you enter your reading when you're tracking your reading. It's got your goals and community, and these are books that are based off of how the community's reading and what they like and don't like. And that's pretty much BookPine. Once again, you don't see any flashing ads or anything like that. It's just there for the community. So that's it. That's 2 free reading trackers I thought you might be interested in. I generally, I really like Bookend. And if I wasn't paying for a reading tracker or I didn't want to pay for a reading tracker, then I would probably use Bookend. For me personally, I like the versatility of BookPine. It's just the interface is kind of convoluted to me, and it just feels like it's going to take a decent learning curve to get used to the interface. I think once you do get used to the interface of BookPine, then it's going to be a perfectly fine app. And especially considering it's free with no ads, if you're somebody who doesn't want to pay a monthly fee, then that's definitely a way to go, especially if you have a mix of Android and iOS devices and you like entering your data for your books on the web, which can be really convenient if you're entering your reading data on the web and then it's being synced to both the iOS and the Android app. So those are the 2 apps. Hopefully this was interesting to you and useful. It's Bookend, which is an iOS app, and then BookPine, which is Android, iOS, and on the web. This is Ofori, the digital reader, and keep reading.